My parents humiliated me at my sister's graduation. They casually joked that I was a mistake, a stark contrast to my perfect sister. I was utterly mortified by their behavior that day. They openly disparaged me in front of everyone, our closest friends and family members. This event was meant to celebrate Alina, my older sister. She was thrilled to embark on her new chapter, having just graduated from college and secured an incredible job. When my parents rose to speak in her honor, I anticipated a respectful tribute. She had dedicated herself to reaching this milestone and deserved every bit of recognition. It didn't surprise me when, during their address, they lauded Alina as one of life's greatest blessings. By then, I was old enough to recognize that my parents held a deeper affection for Alina than for me. She had always been the more naturally gifted daughter, and they would consistently hold her up as the standard I should meet. Then, they began to joke in their speech about wishing they'd stopped having children after Alina. They claimed that secondborns were often useless, suggesting that if only Alina had been their sole child, they could have poured more time and effort into her rather than wasting it on me. Hearing such cruel statements, delivered so openly and casually as I sat right there, left me stunned. I scanned the room, desperate for anyone, to acknowledge the disturbing nature of their remarks. But all I saw were the faces of my relatives chuckling along, as if this horrible comparison was just light-hearted entertainment. While my parents had frequently made me feel inferior and inconsequential, this was the first time they'd done it publicly. Leaving no doubt about their true opinion, I simply fell short when measured against their remarkable daughter, Alina. This wasn't an isolated incident or a lapse in judgment. It simply confirmed what I had long suspected. I was a distant afterthought, while my older sister would forever be the daughter they adored. Growing up as the second child, I grew accustomed to our household's unspoken favoritism. It subtly permeated their conversations, actions, and daily routines. My parents often overlooked my birthday, and on more than one occasion, they were away on business trips, leaving me alone. They would never, however, miss Alina's special moments. Every year, without fail, both of my parents would be present, orchestrating an elaborate celebration and ensuring she felt cherished. Witnessing the outpouring of love on her special day taught me early on to temper my expectations and accept that my birthday held less significance for them. As an outspoken youngster, my parents frequently labeled me disruptive or unpleasant simply for being myself. I was deemed problematic because I didn't conform to the quiet, reserved demeanor they seemed to prefer. And I was reprimanded for something as simple as being too talkative or honest in expressing my interests. Alina's calm temperament and introverted tendencies, conversely, were consistently praised within our family. She was considered the ideal daughter, mature and well-mannered, and thus the one paraded in front of everyone. Over the years, I was the one who bore the brunt of their criticism. For a time, I tried to fit the image my parents seemed to desire. I made an earnest effort, believing that if I behaved better, achieved more, or simply followed their blueprint, they would eventually see me differently. But as I matured, it became evident that I couldn't simply morph into Alina's replica. We were distinct individuals. I tried so hard, but I couldn't be her. I eventually gave up and attempted to adjust to their constant adoration of her, the way they would boast about her accomplishments to anyone who would listen, while dismissing everything I had ever done. It still stung terribly. All of those painful occurrences, as devastating as they were, had at least remained within our private sphere. I was aghast at how casually they exposed everything at the graduation ceremony. My parents had never before publicly shamed me, nor had they revealed to the extended family the depth of their disregard for me. What hurt even more was that no one in my entire family expressed disapproval or told my parents how inappropriate their behavior was. Not a single person even offered a sympathetic glance after my parents delivered those jokes at my expense. My parents continued to extol Alina, their voices brimming with a pride I had never experienced, directed at me. Then, they brazenly announced her graduation gift, a brand new car she had always wanted. With all eyes on Alina, who embraced my parents with love and gratitude, the room erupted in applause, laughter, and cheers. The three of them appeared genuinely content. I felt like an outcast in my own family. The ironic thing is, I've never been envious of Alina. We had always gotten along well enough, and I believed she deserved every bit of good fortune that came her way. But that speech shattered me. The truth is, after that horrific speech, I finally confronted my parents. For years, I had silently endured their favoritism, scorn, and hurtful words. I absorbed it all, convincing myself that if I just remained strong and calm instead of reacting, things would improve. But that evening, after their public jest, I had reached my breaking point. I was tired of internalizing everything and pretending. Their comments didn't sting anymore. So, I resolved that I could no longer remain silent. I summoned the courage to speak up, hoping my parents would finally grasp how deeply their actions had wounded me. I wanted them to at least demonstrate enough care to listen to me. I wanted them to acknowledge the misery they had inflicted over the years and the embarrassment I felt in that moment. I reasoned that if I explained my feelings, they would regret their words, or at least feel terrible about making me appear so insignificant. When I finally confronted them, their response was cold and dismissive. They paid little attention to my words. Instead of offering sorrow or an apology, they told me I was exaggerating, as if years of neglect and denigration could be so easily dismissed. They acted as if I had no right to be upset with them, as if my feelings simply didn't matter. My father went so far as to remark that he had nothing to be proud of when it came to me, and that I shouldn't resent them if they were disappointed with who I was. I recall how casually he stated it, as if my very existence was inconsequential. To him, my mother, on the other hand, told me to stop overreacting and suggested I was being overly needy by being upset over something so trivial. It felt as if my parents were saying I hadn't earned the basic respect of being their child because I hadn't done enough, that I was somehow less deserving of their pride or care than Alina, simply because I wasn't her. The issue even resurfaced with Alina, who defended my parents and, predictably, urged me to be less critical of them. She said something that truly hit home, and I'll never forget it. "You shouldn't have been so outraged by their graduation speech. It was just a harmless gesture." Alina assured me that if I had studied and worked hard like she did, I could make them proud too. Among all their words, those struck the deepest. It was agonizing to hear that I hadn't worked hard enough to earn their respect. She made it sound so simple, as if all the years of effort I had poured in were invisible to her, as if my struggles and attempts to build a life had no bearing. As the older sister, I expected her to shield me in some way, but she didn't. That felt like a profound betrayal coming from her. Looking back, that conversation changed everything. I realized then that I had emotionally distanced myself from my family. I was done trying to win their approval, done trying to explain myself to them, and done hoping for something that would never materialize, their love or affirmation. From that day forward, I channeled all my energy into building a life for myself. I immersed myself in my studies, focusing on the things I could control and create my own destiny. 2 years later, all my hard work paid off when I was accepted on a full scholarship to my dream university. This was entirely my own achievement, the result of my dedication, determination, and refusal to let my family's neglect define me. After reaching that goal, it truly felt, for the first time, like I had accomplished something purely personal. When I shared the news with my parents, they were utterly astonished, as if they had never expected me to attend college at all. Alina meticulously examined my admission letter twice, as if she couldn't believe I was capable of achieving things on my own. Clearly, they had all underestimated me, and witnessing their surprise filled me with a quiet thrill. My head at her comment, but my mother then soured my mood by remarking that it was a good thing I had received a full scholarship, because they hadn't set aside any college funds for me anyway. My parents had, of course, had no issue covering Elena's tuition. When it was time to move out, I simply packed my belongings and departed from my college apartment. That day, I made a firm decision to sever all contact with Alina and my parents. I felt no need to explain my intentions. They had consistently demonstrated, after all, that my feelings, opinions, and values held little sway with them. Why should I exhaust myself trying to explain something they had consistently proven unable to acknowledge? Offered an apology that might begin to heal years of neglect and anguish, I recognized that arguing with them was futile. My family frequently contacted me over the next few weeks and months, sending emails and messages, vaguely hoping I had reconsidered my actions and was reaching out to make amends. Initially, I felt compelled to open them. However, Each message served as a bitter reminder of their true nature. Their communications were filled with attempts to convince me that I was the one acting erratically, rather than accepting responsibility for the years of emotional pain they had inflicted. They believed I had overreacted, dismissing my decision to end our relationship as immature and impulsive. Their statements consistently returned to the underlying narrative. I was the one dissolving the family, so I was wrong to cut them off. I never bothered to respond to any of them. So far, my college experience has been wonderfully positive. I've been able to devote my full attention to my studies, my hobbies, and most importantly, building connections with people who genuinely love and see me for who I am. Working part-time at a nearby diner has helped me save for the future, and meeting new people there and learning about their lives has been fascinating. I've cut off contact with my family and immersed myself in my studies, my social life, and everything my new surroundings have to offer. Activities, I haven't missed them or wondered about their well-being, not even once. Yesterday, I received an unexpected email from my parents. It was a shock. They had stopped writing to me long ago because I had never responded to any of their previous communications. In this email, my parents urged me to contact them soon, as they had bad news to share. Still, despite everything, I felt my chest tighten. Years of hurt and rejection couldn't erase the persistent dread that something terrible had occurred. My heart began to pound, and all I could think about was the possibility that a family member was gravely ill, or worse, had passed away. Despite my resolve to keep them at a distance, fear crept in my heart, hammering as I braced myself for whatever news they were about to deliver. I grabbed my phone, unblocked their number, and called them back immediately. The news, my parents, wanted to share concerned Alina, who was going through a difficult personal situation. They revealed that she had been battling drug addiction, which had severely impacted her life. They explained that her addiction had escalated to the point where she had lost her job, depleted her savings, and was now left with no resources or options. I had absolutely no idea Alina was going through anything like this, so the news completely blindsided me. She had always been my reliable, high-achieving sister. Yet that same sister had fallen prey to drug addiction. I found it incredibly hard to believe. Elena's addiction was so unfathomable in my parents' eyes that it shattered their perception of her. Their incredulity, their desperation, and most strikingly, their profound concern about how this would affect their reputation if others found out, truly shocked me. They seemed to hope I would have some answers for them as they recounted everything. Alina had always appeared so grounded and responsible, so it was astonishing that she, of all people, had become a victim to something as dangerous as heroin addiction. My father then asked me, with a distinct tone of suspicion, "You didn't introduce her to drugs back then, did you?" The implication staggered me. Not only was the idea completely absurd, but it was also deeply offensive to think they might assume I had anything to do with Elena's troubles, let alone introducing her to drugs. How could I possibly have introduced my older sister to drugs? I've never used drugs myself. Furthermore, I hadn't spoken with Alina or the rest of my family in years due to their mistreatment of me. Having removed myself from their lives, I had focused on forging my own path away from their toxicity. As their immaculate image of Alina crumbled, they were quick to point fingers at someone else, and I was clearly the easiest target. I advised them to speak with Alina before making any assumptions, and I told them they were foolish to even suspect me. Throughout our conversation, I noticed that my parents were more preoccupied with the shame that would befall the family if Elena's addiction became public, rather than expressing genuine concern for her. My mother seemed almost fixated on her perfect daughter's secret struggles. She kept talking about how unexpected it was to uncover this side of her, and how others would react if they ever found out. Alina and my father seemed overwhelmed and unprepared to deal with the situation. So my mother pleaded with me to return home to help them care for Alina. My mother implored, what do we even do? Ken talk to her for us. This felt like an audacious demand to make after years of no communication. I can't help Alina, I stated bluntly. She needs professional help. Her to recover. The best and most compassionate thing they could do was admit her to a treatment facility where trained specialists could assist her, but my father immediately rejected the idea of sending her to rehab, practically trembling at the thought of their family's good name being tarnished by her admission to a treatment center. He was obsessed with the potential harm to their reputation. He claimed it would only damage their standing. The thought of people knowing that their only accomplished daughter had a serious illness like heroin addiction horrified him. My father chastised me for even considering this option, as if openly acknowledging her addiction was more shameful than the addiction itself, and as if constant surveillance would miraculously fix the problem. Dad insisted that I return home, and that the three of us work together to care for Alina, keeping her under constant observation to prevent a relapse. He kept reiterating how much they wanted Alina to feel better and return to her normal life as soon as possible. Was that everything would return to normal as long as no one else knew. They wanted me to participate in a charade, pretending everything was fine while keeping her issues hidden from everyone. I listened with growing outrage and disbelief. Why were my parents so fixated on what others thought of them and their reputation? Here was an opportunity for them to truly step up, to demonstrate they could prioritize their daughter's needs over appearances and genuinely change her life. My sister was clearly suffering from something severe, yet they still struggled to do the right thing. These people, evidently, hadn't changed much at all. On top of that, they were now trying to lure me back, urging me to maintain this family facade by helping them care for the very sister they so often compared me to. I told them I needed some time to consider things. I can't just drop everything, I explained. I have classes and a job to think about. My parents insisted I take at least 2 or 3 weeks off, too. Help them because they really needed me right now. I'm torn about everything. Part of me wants to see what I can do for Alina to ensure she's okay. Another part of me feels selfish, wanting to let my parents manage their golden child entirely on their own. I'm uncertain how much help I can truly be, given their primary concern is saving face rather than addressing the core problem. Even today, I still wonder if I should refuse to return home and care for my drug-addicted sister. Update 1. This story unexpectedly took off, and it's taking some time to sift through the hundreds of comments I've received. I wanted to clarify a few things. I don't hate Alina. In fact, I want to help her and genuinely care about her well-being. However, having not spoken with my family for 3 years, I've experienced a level of serenity and stability I never had before. My concern is that reconnecting with Alina might allow my parents to re-enter my life as well, and I honestly don't know if I'm ready for that. For those wondering, Alina could have been battling heroin addiction for years, possibly even before my parents discovered it. Clearly, Alina, the golden child, was praised and maintained as the ideal daughter, often under immense pressure to uphold that image. This kind of pedestal minimizes vulnerability and magnifies failure. Any misstep, no matter how minor, could have been devastating if Alina believed her self-worth was solely tied to her accomplishments and others' perceptions of her. Drugs might have gradually become a coping mechanism for escaping the weight of those expectations, or the fear of disappointing our parents. I become even more distressed when I consider my sister, who may have been suffering silently all along. Without my knowledge, she should have felt comfortable being honest with me earlier, before things reached this point. I would have wanted to be there for her, to help her through it. It just makes me feel powerless, knowing if only I had known about this significant part of her life, I could have offered support. My parents expected the best from both me and my sister from an early age, as they are both high achievers themselves. Personally, I need some more time to process everything. I will keep you updated if anything further develops. Update 2. After considerable introspection and encouragement from some of the comments I read, I decided to contact Alina. Despite everything, she is my sister. As a result, I believed it was crucial to hear directly from her rather than base my decisions on my parents' interpretation of events. First, I texted her a short message asking if she wanted to chat. She replied several hours later, but only agreed to a phone call. When I finally spoke with her, the voice on the other end of the line seemed like a shadow of the sister I knew. Elena's tone was noticeably subdued, softer, and more cautious. She slowly began to reveal what she had been enduring. Alina explained that she had struggled with addiction for several years. It began shortly after college, when she started working at her law firm. She constantly pushed herself to work harder than others to impress her supervisor, hoping for more credit or a promotion to maintain her status at work. After being the perfect, highly talented daughter for so long, Alina began to feel burned. out, she felt she couldn't stop, slow down, or seek treatment because she had to live up to everyone's expectations. When the stress became unbearable, a friend recommended using recreational drugs to unwind. Before she knew it, what started as occasional use had spiraled into dependence. Alina also shared that she felt trapped for the longest time. She couldn't tell her parents she was struggling because she knew how they would react. She felt completely alone due to their obsessive focus on appearances and their denial of anything that contradicted their narrative. She maintained the facade, acting as if everything was fine, even as she began to lose control. Eventually, she couldn't hide it anymore, spiraled, lost her job, and depleted her savings. She asked if I was judging her as harshly as she was judging herself, and expressed her embarrassment for even discussing this with me. It broke my heart to hear her story. I had never realized that the pedestal our parents had placed her on was a prison rather than a privilege. She had been bearing the suffocating weight of being their golden child, whereas I had been dealing with the pain of being overlooked. Our parents' focus on control and favoritism had harmed each of us in profoundly different ways. There was no way I would have judged her. As a result, I expressed my regret that she hadn't felt comfortable sharing her feelings with me sooner. My only regret is that I wasn't there for her.